We decided that the museum needed a coat of arms, and I believe, Sarah, you can help us with something that might fit that purpose.
Yes, it's the medallion made by Michel de Montaigne. Montaigne was a French writer of the 16th century who I'm very fond of. I wrote my last book about him. He wrote about really his life, his neighbours, his friends, what he thought about things, books that he'd read, his job, what it felt like to be angry or sad or a bit embarrassed. So he's explored every aspect of human experience. But he did all of this in a spirit not of telling anybody anything, but of inquiring, just asking questions of himself, really. And to remind himself of this need to constantly ask questions, he had a medallion made on which he put several symbols. One was a weighing scales to remind himself always to weigh things up. One was the Greek word epoche, which means literally I reserve judgment, and it was the motto of the skeptics from the ancient world. And the other one was the words in French, his own language, que sais-je, what do I know? And this, for him, was not only the spirit of inquiry, the spirit of constantly questioning his experience, but also, as it was for the classical skeptics who influenced him, a path to mental tranquility. In fact, one example that has been put forward by a historian of skepticism, Alan Bailey, is exactly that if somebody comes up to you and says that the number of grains of sand in the Sahara is even, then instead of arguing and getting upset, you would just say, whatever. Doesn't really matter. You would feel quite mentally tranquil about it. And for the skeptics, if you can develop that mental tranquility about every question, then life is a much more pleasant affair. So it's that spirit of inquiry that I find so inspiring, and I would love to have a medallion like that in the museum.
Did he used to wear the medallion?
I don't think so, no, although I like the image, because one thing he does tell us is that he had quite a hairy chest. He said he was... So I have this image in my head now.
So not just the first modern thinker, but the first medallion.
The first medallion man, absolutely.
I like him. I'll say that now. He described himself as small and lazy as well, didn't he?
Yes, he loved to say that he was lazy and he couldn't really be bothered to exert himself for anything. He also loved to point out that he had a terrible memory. If he thought of some brilliant idea while he was out riding, by the time he got back to his castle, he'd forgotten what the idea was. And he said that he'd read quite a lot, but he'd forgotten almost everything that he read. And this was the path to wisdom, really, because he didn't want to be too perfect. He wanted to accept himself as he was. A good
I'll buy
path to
that,
a
yeah.
The ideas are so modern and so eternal, aren't they,
yeah,
about human nature?
Many people have called him the world's first truly modern thinker, because he's never quite sure of himself. His classic phrase will always be something like, but I don't know, or maybe not, or I'm not sure.
But what do I know? Yeah.
But what do I know? And he changes his mind about everything as he goes along, and he puts it all in the essays, so it all ends up being, this great mass of different ideas that he's had at different periods.
What is interesting, Sarah, slightly like you, you lived in a drawer for your first few years of your life, and he was sent to live with peasants in a cottage until he was 3, because his father thought he'd have some experience of meeting working-class people. Then brought back to his parents' chateau, where his parents and their servants spoke to him only in Latin until he was 6.
But he also, in case his father sounds a bit brutal with this idea, he also was a great believer that children shouldn't be woken too violently in the morning. So he had the boy woken by a lute player who appeared every morning and strummed a few gentle chords to charm him out of sleep.
Well, so we gladly accept Montaigne's medallion, and we'll make sure his coat of arms finds its place over the museum's entrance, heading up our stationery and adorning the overpriced bookmarks we sell in the gift shop. With no doubt at all, that's in the museum. Thank you very much.